The world of fashion manufacturing is changing. Manufacturing in Asia is not what it used to be. Factories in there are changing, as well as their attitude towards creatives and brands. They recognize the need for smaller minimums and for more flexible manufacturing, and for the need to be more creative as a producer. In the interview you're about to watch, I meet with Karishma Kapur. She is the founder and the one-woman force behind a new factory in Mumbai, India, called the Haute Factory. In our conversation, you will discover what it is like to set up and run a factory in India, and how factories in India operate, the forces and challenges that factory owners experience, and designers from the West should know about and take into consideration when choosing to work with Asian manufacturing partners. So enjoy the interview. It really was an insightful conversation, and I hope you will enjoy it as much as I did. So, hey, Karishma, hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
All the way from Mumbai.
Yes.
So, just for the benefit of everyone, because they don't know you, would you introduce yourself and tell us, what you do? What's your role in the fashion industry?
Okay, so my name's Karishma, and I have been in the fashion industry since the last almost 10 to maybe even 12 years. And I basically run a manufacturing unit. So it's a factory setup where I work with independent design labels across the globe, and I manufacture their samples and their collections. Yeah.
So is it ladies wear, or what do you specialize in?
So I specialize, in ladies wear, and I specialize more in Western silhouettes rather than typically Indian, which comes as a surprise to many. But not that I have not made Indian silhouettes before, but I think over the years and with the kind of work I've received, I specialize a lot in Western clothing so far. Yeah.
So you work with Western designer brands and you export. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So how did you get into that? Because when we first met, I found out that you had a whole other career in life before that. Tell us about that.
So it's like it goes way way back. But I think with me, I was one of the girls that you meet, like a girl next door who loves fashion and wants to do everything related to fashion. And it started off somewhere, with my mom having a tailor who would come home, and he would make a lot of really nice clothes for us. I mean, and it was fun to have somebody coming and giving you something that just fits you perfectly and is made for you, So I think that's where, the whole that's where it started for me. And since I was in college and studying, I would dabble a bit here and there in making clothes for friends. And I had small exhibitions here and there in festivals, college festivals, and exhibitions at home. And it was just exciting. Like the thrill of somebody coming and buying and wearing what you've made was just something else. So it started from there, and then it came to a point where I love the idea of creation. So I believed that I could really create anything that could be made with fabric. So I just started creating things like I made umbrellas, and I've done like bags and beach mats, and just weird stuff, like anything that could be done out of fabric. So that's how I got into it. And then I think it was the year 2008. That's when I started taking my work of making or manufacturing seriously. And so I started my manufacturing since the year 2008.
What did you study in university? You studied, was it?
So I actually studied, I did my master's in economics. And I worked for a bank for a brief period of about, I think, even 3 to 4 months, not too long. And I was just so bored with the whole idea of like getting up at the same time, going to work, wearing these boring clothes, doing a boring job. And it just, I think that's what really fueled it in me, that no, I really want to go out there and do something creative, because I mean, I was wearing clothes that I had made for myself, and I had people like commenting on them and liking them. And it really made me like go out there and like do something
Yeah.
in fashion. Yeah.
It's funny how sometimes we know what we should be doing, but we
Yes.
go somewhere else to come
Yes.
back, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
how did you start? How did you get your first jobs? How did you set up your factory? What's it like to set up a factory in India? Because part of me thinks it's super easy because you have so many people, so many factories.
Right, right. So I think the way I started was a bit of a hustle. And so like I said, like I was already in the fashion a bit by, I was making clothes for people. I believed in the fact that making customized clothes was something that's going to work, like everybody wants clothes made for themselves personally. And tailoring in India is pretty big because you have tailors who come home to take your work and make it for you. So, but I wanted to take this a step ahead where I visit people to their homes, make it like a personalized experience for them where they don't have to really step out. It's like they have somebody like a stylist of sorts coming home, helping them to, create clothes for them. So that's how I started. And that was actually one of the experiences that led me to really understand what, understand how fits work, how it works to work with different people of different shapes and sizes. I mean, it really taught me a lot, but it was a lot of hard work, like a lot of hard work. And then I came across, people that made really nice fabrics. Like I found a lot of factories had such amazing fabrics that they were just letting go, like wasting them. And I bought fabrics from those factories, and I started to sell those fabrics to designers in cities in and around Bombay and in Bombay itself. Mumbai. So so I started to sell them fabrics, and that was a great experience as well, because then I understood qualities of fabrics, what people are liking now, not liking, so how to measure fabric properly. So I kept learning as I kept doing, which was pretty amazing. And I think for me, the manufacturing bit started when I visited my sister in Australia, and I carried like whole loads of stuff to like just sell there, just to sell to her friends and their friends. And a visit to a market actually led me to see a designer who was selling her clothes, and it looked very familiar. The clothes looked familiar because they looked a bit Indian, Indian in terms of the fabric or in terms of the embroidery, but they were still Western silhouettes. So I just approached her and I said, you know what, I can make these for you. And I realized that she was making them in India, in Jaipur. And that's when it struck me that, why not just try, just have a conversation. And she was very approachable, and I think I just had the fire in me, and I just went up to her and confidently said that, I can make these for you and I can make them better. And a couple of meetings with her actually led me to like my first manufacturing order, and it's been nonstop since then. Yeah.
That's amazing. And you know what's also really interesting? I mean, as I mentioned to you, I know India quite well, but what most people don't realize, I think, is that they don't realize that the majority of the tailors and workers in factories are men and not women. So by you being a woman and going to houses to work with clients, that was already a novelty factor. But I think that probably you had a better understanding of the shape and the bodies than the men, especially to other women. Maybe they felt more comfortable. So
yeah, absolutely. So for me, when I did the whole thing of going to people and meeting them in their houses, it was more about creating a personalized, more like a stylist kind of concept for normal people. Like, I mean, stylists are normally for celebrities, but this was more about, just making a normal person feel special, that someone is coming home to me and going to get these, clothes made for me. And yeah, exactly. So and I think about the whole men working out here, I think that is a lot of people do get surprised by that, you know, a lot of the workers here are men. But I think in India, mostly it's the men who step out of their homes to do you know, jobs. So a lot of the workers, they come from various villages, you know, so they come to the cities to work and, like, you know, send money back home. And they're skilled workers because they learn all of this from childhood, you know. So the women are more confined to working within their home space. There are a few factories that focus on women employment, but then those are also more restricted to you know, crafty things, like, you know, more of embroidery or knitting or things like that. Like, but with manufacturing, when it's about just sewing garments back to back, it's more the men who do that out here.
It's really interesting. So we'll come
Yeah.
back to that because I want to ask you
Sure.
something. But just tell me, before we move away from the whole setup, what were some of the challenges you faced? Did you set up the business by yourself, and why did you call it Hot Factory? Because it's a really unusual.
So I think I did set up the business by myself. I had amazing help and a lot of belief from my father, who you know, went out of his way to, like, support me in every way. In any silly dream I had, he said, you know, yes, you should, so do it. So it was a lot of support from him that really made me you know, think that, okay, what I'm doing is not crazy. So when I landed my first order in about you know, the one that I was just speaking of in Australia, I just came back home and I set up like 4 machines and set it up like in my garage, and I just started out because I knew I had an order and I had to deliver, and I didn't want to, like, not take it seriously. So I think for me, one of the biggest challenges when I started was just doing everything alone in an unknown world, you know. So knowing how to design and knowing how to get something made is very different from running a manufacturing setup, because you have workers, you're responsible for them, you have a space, you're responsible to run it, you know, to you have machines, you have to maintain them. So there's literally so much to manufacturing than just, you know, getting a design done. So for me, I think pretty much everything was a challenge, really. I even remember like doing like thread cutting and packaging like on my dining table, because I just wanted to make sure that it's so clean and, you know, nothing like touches my garments. And I mean, I was like really focused, but you know, it was more about getting it all done perfectly. So so it was tough. It was tough to the finances were quite tough, because running the business, like, you know, earning and then putting it back into the business and not just enjoying the money that you've earned. So it took me a long time to understand the whole financial side of it, you know. Dealing with workers, I mean, it's very tough, like dealing with labor, you know, making sure they're working at an efficient speed, making sure they're honest and sincere in sustaining workers. I mean, that has also been really tough. So I think for me, I can proudly say that about 50% of my workers today have been with me since the last 7 to 8 years. So, and that's tough. I mean, I think that's still rare to find today.
Yeah,
so,
that's amazing. And also on top of everything else that you said, you have to go out and get business, right? You have to make sure you're getting business into. How have you found this? How have you how have you gone out and got other Western designers to work with you? What have been the challenges of that?
Yeah. So I think because I was handling everything single-handedly, like getting the work, explaining the work, speaking with suppliers, getting raw materials. So it was like every supply chain that is involved in the manufacturing process was being done single-handedly by me. So I never got that much time to focus on marketing and getting new clients. But so for me, the growth has been slow but steady. And I think what worked for me was just word of mouth. So I had somebody refer me to somebody, and then, they just happened to email me or send me a text, and I just took it on, the opportunity. And I think the first order that I ever did gave me the confidence that I can do this, So I think approaching people, it just came to me naturally. Like, I didn't think that it was tough to do, or how would I approach them. And so I just did, and out of like maybe 10 people that I approached, I got like one client conversion out of it. But still, that was not bad. But so far, I've got all the people that I'm working with, all my clients today have been through word of mouth or referrals. So
that's always the best form of marketing.
Yes.
And
yes.
And what's really interesting and funny about you is that you have named your factory the Odd Factory. I don't know, but you really are kind of odd in the landscape of Indian manufacturing, which is more about volume, unless you obviously go to the luxury factories and specialist factories. But you have a real niche in terms of the fact that you like working with creatives and with small minimums. So tell us a little bit about that. What do you like doing? Who's your ideal customer?
So I think the reason that I named it the Odd Factory is because, one, in a sense, like you said, it is a bit odd, like just the way our concept of manufacturing and working is. And ODD also stands for Order, Design, Dispatch, because that's literally what the manufacturing process is about. So you order, you work on the design, and then it's all set to go. So that's the whole idea. And yeah, I mean, I think my ideal customer is someone who is passionate about what they create, and who wants to be involved in the manufacturing process in a way that they understand, like they know what the loopholes are, they respect timing, or they respect that certain things take time, certain things go wrong. So someone who respects the reality, basically. So and I think with me, what makes us odd is that like I don't have any minimum quantities that I want to work with. So I have made like wedding dresses for clients. I have made bridesmaid dresses. I have done an entire collection. I've done sampling collections. It's just about the love of creating. So I know that if so-and-so thing can be put on the machine and sewn, I'm willing to, work with it. I don't need like 50 units of that to work with it. And at the same time, I'm happy to work with people who even have temporary projects. So projects that are focused for a certain amount of time for a certain purpose, and then we see what happens. So I'm not really hell-bent on working, for the entire year, season to season, back-to-back collections. I mean, what really fuels me to work for the person is the creativity behind what they're doing. So I mean, that's what I like to do.
But most factories, the reason they have minimum order quantities is to keep the workflow. So it's where over time they get more efficiency and and profits, the repeat orders, etc. So how are you managing to sustain it through this one-off almost type of production? And also my other question is, because I presume that you would charge a little bit more because it's a one-off, it takes longer, etc. Do you face resistance in terms of prices? I mean, from the customers?
Yes. So I think that's a really good question on how, sustaining the factory as such. So I did have my problems, to be honest, because for me, I'm a creative person. So like I said, for me, the finances and the business part of it was always something tough to deal with, because I just realized that, if I take on this one amazing dress and I just make it one time, how am I going to feed like the other 10 machines that I have? Because, so, but I think what worked for me was working with a portfolio of different clients. So working with somebody who is doing collections back to back, working with someone who's doing a smaller boutique collections, working with someone who's doing one-off projects. So what happens is in the bargain, like not only am I learning, but even my workers are getting more and more skilled by the day, doing different things, you know. So and I like the ability that I have to probably choose the work that I want to do. Yeah. So I think you know, there's always this thing that if you're a factory, factories are boring. Factories are just about giving them the work, making it, giving it. So I never wanted to fit into that space, you know. I love creating, I love delivering, but I want to be involved in the creation. So I think for me, the trick was about having different types of clients that would fulfill each you know, part of the manufacturing process.
And you're quite versatile because you offer sewing as well as embroideries and
yes. So yeah, I mean, I do from the pattern making stage to sewing to embroidery. I even do print development, you know, for a lot of clients. So, and I'm pretty much open to doing something as long as I know I can afford it, and as long as I know that it's you know, going to make sense for me to get into. Like,
and for your clients,
yeah,
that it fits the brief, you know, the price point
yes,
you're looking at, etc. Yeah, because you're lucky in Mumbai, you have a real industry for fashion manufacturing, and you have a lot of
yes,
other workshops that you can partner with for embroidery, for printing, like
yes,
you
yes,
know, for everything. Suppliers are all
absolutely.
around.
Yeah,
so you can find everything and anything.
Yes, that is true.
Now let's go into somewhere that's a little more uncomfortable, but
okay.
You know, I am passionate about manufacturing and India as well.
Yeah.
But there's always, I feel like, a misconception of people who want to work with India potentially, but they're looking for what in a Western world we understand as ethical manufacturing. And I feel, having spent a lot of time and worked with factories in India and living in the Western world, I feel that there's a real mismatch into what we think is ethical and what you guys think is ethical. Because in my experience, gosh, this is such a huge topic, but in my experience, I mean, first of all, I think let's go into the fact that men work in the factories, and, you know, in your factories, you have, aside from the fact you have men, you have two different religions that you are juggling at any one point. You have Muslims and the Hindu, and they have different holidays. And in my experience, hardly ever do you have 100% capacity, because there's always something happening in one or the other religion. So how do you manage this? I mean, I have also seen factories who, you know, after holidays, they don't know if their workers are going to come back. You know,
going to be there.
You pay them weekly. You don't know if on a Monday they're going to come back, or, you know. How do you manage this?
So, that's my point in the beginning. That it's very tough to manage workers. It's really tough to, you know, just handle their sensibilities and whatever the issues maybe that may be sensitive to them, like festivals or going back home to their families and things like that. But I think it's very important, and this is a very important aspect of being ethical as well. So like you said, like a lot of brands in the West are you know, speaking about ethical work and ethical manufacturing, or, you know, declaring their brand as being ethical. But I think it's very important for them to understand and respect that ethical, for your brand to be ethical is not just about the raw material being ethical or organic. It's also about the manufacturing process being ethical. And by that we mean we have to respect the workers' annual leave. Like, you know, workers come from villages, they come here to work, and you know, they're away from their families for the longest time. So if a worker wants to travel back home for a period of 2 months, we need to let him do that, because it's only, we need to be sensitive to him, and that's how they pay us back in terms of their loyalty as well. So
because a lot of workers, their villages are like 15, 16 hours away, or, you know, by
Exactly.
and
So
when,
they probably take like 4 days to go back home,
yeah,
and then another 4. So it, you know, and so it is definitely tough. It's always a challenge to make sure that your capacity is to the fullest. And I think it's but at the same time, if your capacity is not 100%, I think a manufacturer just needs to accept that, you know. And I think that's where transparency plays a big role, where your clients need to know. So designers or brands that you're working with need to understand that about you as a manufacturer. So they need to have their eyes and ears open to, this is your capacity, you know, these are the holidays or the festivals in a year. And I think so the way I personally do it is like, I think with the religion that you said, it's always a sensitive topic, and there's nothing right and wrong, but you need to respect who your majority are. So, you know, so if my majority of my workers are Muslim, I need to make sure that I don't ignore what the Hindu workers want, but I respect who my majority are to an extent that I celebrate their festivals with them, you know. So for example, what I do is like, I make sure that, so the first Eid of the year, which is a Muslim festival, I celebrate with them by getting them gifts, you know, that are basically household utility items that would really uplift their way of living back home. So, you know, I gift them things like, for example, kitchen utility items, you know, which I know that their wives back home would be so happy to get, you know, or coolers, or like basically various items that I know that, you know, would like upscale their lifestyle as well. So I know that they are happy to work even when they are fasting, because of it's like a child's mind, you know. You study because you know you're going to get like a gift at the end of the day. So workers are like that to a certain extent, you know. They know that, okay, at the end I'm going to get this amazing gift, sweets, and, you know, I'm going to get a leisurely holiday of like 4 days at a stretch. So I don't mind working till then. And then with the minority in my specifically for me in my capacity that I have, if my minority are Hindu workers, I don't just ignore their festivals, but I make sure that they know which festival, because there are so many in the year. So which festival is really important to them, for them to go back home at that time to celebrate with their families. So it's about knowing your workers as well. You know, it's about knowing that, you know, if an ex-worker has to go back during this time of the year because for so and so reasons, then letting him go at that time, and then trying and explaining to another worker that, look, he needs to go back, so you stay, and then when he's back, you go. So it's about, you
balancing.
know, respecting them and their feelings as well. And I think that's really, even though it's tough, but it's really paid off to me, because that's why they've stuck on, you know. Otherwise it's really hard when a factory also treats its workers just as you know, machines literally, and expecting them to just keep working because they need to deliver. So I think it's a very crucial element of slow fashion as well, that slow fashion means slow manufacturing, not in terms of like slow work, but just to understand each aspect of manufacturing
and
as well.
How regulated is the manufacturing industry in India and in Mumbai? Because, for example, again, what I think most people don't realize when they consider working in India is that, especially if they're working with Mumbai is one of the most expensive cities in the world. It might not look it all the time, and your rents are not cheap, you know. And if we talk about fair wages for the worker, then they can't be peanuts. So, and also, especially if you're doing embroidery, I mean, sometimes some of the high-end embroidery takes thousands of hours, not a few, thousands. You have to pay, right? So when designers then try to bargain with manufacturers, threaten you that they'll go somewhere cheaper, you know, if you give it enough, I think it creates this real difficulty, you know. How do you manage, you know, that concept of being ethical, which in terms of paying fairly, and doing a good job and managing their expectations that you might be Indian manufacturers, but hey, we live in one of the most expensive cities. It's not
correct.
free.
I think that's so true, and I'm so glad that we're talking about this, because that is very true, that Mumbai is a very, very expensive city. I mean, it's expensive to stay here. It's expensive to take something on rent. I mean, overheads can kill us. You know, it's really that expensive. So I think that definitely Mumbai being expensive, like it reflects on our prices of whatever we manufacture as well. And you know, so I wouldn't say that you know, we make everything really dirt cheap or anything like that. But I think the way that I personally balance it out is that I'm very straightforward with my clients. Like, I tell them that, look, this is how much I can do it for, and if it works for you, great. If it doesn't, then I can't do it, you know, because for me, being fair to my workers is very important, because today I know that however educated I am or wherever I may have reached, I today am nothing without my workers as a manufacturer. And workers are your asset, you know, so you can keep replacing machines, but you can't get the same skill level worker. And loyalty is a huge factor as well. So for a person who's been with you for a number of years, you know, you don't want to cut his pay because you may lose out on an order. So I may work less, but I take on work that, you know, can sustain my costs. So and I think with wages, like a lot of factories in India, and I think all across the globe, a lot of factories, you know, they do a piece rate system. So it's like they are paid by the piece they make. It's called like, so by each garment that they produce, they're paid for that. So I think that's how a lot of factories function, but that's not how I work. I pay the workers' salaries at the end of the month. So this I have seen, and that although my work may be a little slow in, you know, in my efficiency, not my efficiency, but in terms of my output, I may not be able to make like 3,000 pieces, let's say, in a month. But even if I'm able to make like 2,000, I know that I'm making them in excellent quality, you know, with minimal, like literally minimal alterations. It's because I'm paying my workers a good amount of salary at the end of the month. So they are working well because they are secure in their minds that they know that they're going to be getting a certain amount. They get appraisals, like once a year we do appraisals and things like that. So I think it's a new way of working for a factory. Like, no factory works like that, but I think it somehow worked for me. It's the fast fashion factories that really have to, you know, think about how they're going to really sustain themselves.
And what about certification? Now, a lot of, again, Western brands, when we talk about manufacturing in India, or if you recommend someone, for example, I have someone now looking to manufacture with an Asian factory, but it has to be ethical certified.
Correct.
And I feel like, again, there's a real misunderstanding what certification you know, cost in Asian factories and what it means. Just because you don't have a certification doesn't mean that you're a factory. And so talk a little bit about this, because I know from talking to manufacturers and seeing the requirements and the hoops you have to go through, how much, you know, you have to pay. And that then forces you to go into a whole different way of operation that almost immediately, I feel like, pushes you not to be ethical anymore and fair to your workers.
Absolutely. So I think with certification, it is a pretty expensive process, to be honest. It and also it requires you to be of a certain scale. Like, you know, you need to be like exporting both a certain amount or a certain quantity. You know, you need to have certain amount of staff, or like, you know, your capacity needs to be of a certain scale, and only then I feel the certification is worth it, because it is expensive. And then, you know, that because your clients are really huge brands, you know, they're like just clothing brands across the world that sell it out of departmental stores and things like that, like really huge brands who, where the manufacturer knows that if he loses out on getting work from that brand because of certification, then he might as well just pay and get it. So it is tough. It is very tough because it requires a lot of documentation. It requires a lot of pulling of strings as well to just make sure that you get it in place. So I think certification is valid. It's definitely, it would make a brand in the West or a designer in the West more secure that the factory is certified. But I think it's only worth it when you're manufacturing to a certain scale. And when you are doing like fast fashion, or you are into producing tons and tons of quantities, throughout the year, like thousands and thousands of pieces, where you have like maybe 100 workers and, those many amount of machines, then it is a sensible approach. But I think for factories like mine, or for brands that are more bespoke and are more on smaller levels or smaller quantities, I think the certification, I wouldn't want to use the word that it's not important, but what I mean is that a fact that given today's day and age, where we can communicate like at any time over video, over call, it's much easier for the client to really see the factory, or even interact with the factory literally even on a daily basis over Skype or over Zoom, and just see what the processes are like. Like, I have never personally faced that issue because I have interacted with each of my clients in person. I've had them come down, see my setup.
That's so important, right? It's so important to go visit the factory.
And I think somewhere the quality of your work reflects your factory as well. So, if you receive, I had, for example, one client tell me like she was working with a factory in Bali, and then she was working with me as well. So for her, I think it was a decision of who does she need to work for now. And I think a simple decision of how she received her garments, like made it very easy for her, and she'd not even seen the factory. So, the fact that she got it like all organized with packing lists, with things itemized and, all intact, just gave her the confidence that, what this factory would be like, maybe neat and clean, or they know how they're working. And then, of course, there's images, there's pictures, there's videos of plenty that we can keep sending in and out. So I think for smaller brands and independent designers, just constantly being in touch with your manufacturer, constantly knowing how they are functioning, I think that should be good enough for them to know that the practices are ethical or not.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, you touched on something. The communication is so important. It's like
so important.
That can trust the two crucial points in the industry. And by being organized, by communicating well, and everything, showing and making it easier for your designer and them for you, that immediately also builds that sense of trust. So it's like a vicious circle that one feeds on the other. It's so important.
Yes, absolutely.
And finally, on this topic, child labor, does it still exist in India? How big of an issue? Because often we get written articles about it. And again, it's one of those things when people talk about ethical manufacturing in Asia, one of the things that ultimately comes, it's also, and I don't want any child labor.
No, so I think that is, maybe there used to be a time when this was there, but now I would call it a myth, because I don't think that child labor exists anymore, because people are very aware now, they're socially aware, and thanks to social media and, like so many platforms and so many voices of, various opinions here. So whether it is out of fear that someone doesn't employ children, or whether it is out of whether it is out of fear that they don't employ children, or whether it is out of just a conscious decision, I don't think that there is no child labor now happening anywhere.
What I often tell people, and I don't know how, back me in this on, or just tell me your experience. From our experience, I haven't seen child labor, but I have seen young, not young adults, let's say, in their teens, in factories. And when, and it's been very often explained to me that they come from families far away, somewhere into the deep India. Families that they cannot feed their children, and by sending them to a relative who works in a factory in a big city, when they're 12, 13, 14 years old, they have food, they have roof over their head, and they are getting a skill, which to the rich and to that family, it's like, it's almost
a
like
big deal.
They've gone to university or something, to them, because soon enough this child will start sending money back home to the rest of the family. Very often illiterate, and it means that by working in the factory, this child might even pick up a few letters and learn how to read and write. Correct. I personally see it from a different point of view, but I think it's very difficult to, this message is not coming through to the West, and it's very difficult to explain that side of your...
So I think it's about, yes, you're absolutely right. Like, I think if with the younger adults, like, for them, if they come from the villages and just want to be like, a helper, like just pick fabric, drop it here, just be running around doing odd jobs. I think that, and, they get like maybe a decent pay for it, and it just helps their families in return. So I don't see a problem with that specifically. And I think that the manufacturer on their side needs to be aware of that. So you need to know the age of your workers. You need to know, you need to have some personal identification of theirs. You need to know where their villages are, how many members they have in their family. So it's very good to always have that background of your workers, and not just employ people because you have an order to finish. So I think like I see it exactly the way you see it. So I think if doing an odd job here and there is helping him give his family a better life, I don't see a problem with that. It's just that the manufacturer has to know and be aware of that, and if I think for all manufacturers, if they even come across like, let's say a child who's maybe 12, like, or 13 or even 14, I mean, honestly, I don't think that happens, but if that were to happen, then I think it's important that you probably tell them that, I'll teach you something. So maybe, yes, you help me with whatever because you want to earn money, but I'll also do it on a condition that you learn something out here. So, you're being fair. You're not, because it's very easy for us to sit in the comfort of our homes and offices and, say that it's not right for them to work at a young age. But whatever they're doing out of a very desperate need.
Survival. It's a question of survival for many of them.
Yeah.
I feel like our understanding of how it should be, it's so first world. Whereas in India, the reality is we cannot even comprehend the reality. And
correct. So I think if that were to happen for a manufacturer, if he's so one would be definitely having like a record, a background check of all your workers. I mean, for safety as well as knowing who's working for you, And secondly, if there is a younger person out there, then maybe train him so that he is educating himself as well, and at the same time maybe earning a small amount to send back home. Exactly. So you never know.
So let's shift a little bit. What's it like now with the pandemic? I know that you're going through your wave. It's almost pandemic is like the Mexican wave. It's going from
So it's very tough. Like right now, I think it's probably a time that nobody would ever even imagine. It's tough from all aspects, because I think it's sad that everything that is happening is actually really falling upon the shoulders of the workers again. So it's like today, if we as manufacturers don't have orders, or we are unable to complete them, or whatever the reason may be, it's falling upon the workers, because then manufacturers may not be able to pay their workers, or may have to shut down because they cannot sustain their overheads. So it's a very tricky situation right now to be in. But I think the way I'm personally handling it for the Odd Factory is where I'm trying to focus more on collaborating with people, and getting together like a pool of people who want to co-work and work together within like the same space. So utilize the fact that you have a space to work in, and like maybe share the space and work together, or things like that. So I think the future right now for a manufacturer is just about collaborating and helping each other out. So
pulling resources together.
Yeah, so it's like if I make garments and I know someone who makes shoes, it's about us putting our network of clients together, and maybe just seeing how manufacturers as a network can help each other out. Because right now we all are struggling because we don't have workers, because all of the workers have gone back to their villages, and at least in India, there's still uncertainty about how these workers are going to come back. Like, it took them so long to go back home. So it was a very tough time, because while they were still stuck in the cities, we were in lockdown, so we couldn't really work. And by the time cities have started to reopen, workers have gone back. So now it's about how they are going to come back and when they are going to come back, So I think at a time like this, it's just about helping each other out. Like, so if I get an order from somewhere, I see if someone else can help me with it, or I help someone. And I think it's a small message for designers and brands who are working with manufacturers, that to support them, at least to give them assurance that even if you need to shut temporarily for whatever reasons, we will work with you again. So just giving that sense of assurity would be huge right now, if designers and brands across could make their manufacturers feel that they're not going to let go.
And also maybe promoting your services, because there's this sense of secrecy in the industry. If you're working with someone good, everyone kind of hogs that contact. They don't want to share it in case of you get too busy and drop them. So nobody really celebrates their manufacturer, let's say, and that's something that I really would like to see more of, rather than for 1 week a year.
Absolutely. Like, so everyone is enjoying to put up posters of who made my clothes, but I think they completely ignore the entire process of manufacturing. Like, they ignore the loopholes of manufacturing. So I think it's important to accept the reality as well, and especially if not before, then at a time like this, So it would be great if like brands and designers got the importance of what a time like this can be, because it's temporary, it's going to pass, but it's like how we shape it now is what it's going to be in the next few months to come. So it's just about holding it together.
And in the future, because we have an amazing chance now to reshape the fashion industry in a way that never had this opportunity in the past.
Yes, absolutely.
Amazing. And Izia, I know that you are very strong on Instagram. You have a great account. In fact, I thought that you had probably a Western office because it was so well managed.
Wow, thank you.
Is that contributing and helping you get the word out and bring you business, or at least awareness about what you do?
Yeah, so I think again, the credibility of my account and the way it looks goes totally to my younger sister. I mean, it's great when family steps in and just gives you the push to continue doing what you're doing. And so yeah, she's been really helping me out to make it look as good, and like putting out the message of what exactly I'm doing each day, like through a post, So I think right now our focus is also on upcycling. like what we as a factory want to do is really take the trend of upcycling to the next stage, you know. So like taking, I mean, everyone knows what upcycling is, but it's about giving it that importance or giving it the value that it deserves, you know. So so I think that's what we're really trying to do with our through Instagram basically, and also focus a lot on collaborating, you know, like meeting people like you, for example, and like, you know, just spreading the word, like spreading the message on fashion, giving manufacturers their due importance, because it's always about, you know, the designer or how creative they are, but not giving due credit to the manufacturer. So I think,
I couldn't agree more, because I always say that, you know, the designers don't give enough credit and due to their manufacturers, and yet without them there's no business. Just like you said earlier, that without your workers you have no business.
Exactly.
Designer brands, without their manufacturers, have no business, and yet they whine and down the PR and marketing departments, which are also important, but really.
So I think it's important to know, you know, it's very important that the designers, like you said, celebrate their manufacturers. They don't hide them, or they don't, you know, not want to talk about their manufacturers. I think it's great, because manufacturing is a very, you know, important entrepreneurial venture. I mean, there can be a host of people who want to start manufacturing, but they can't, because they either don't know how to, or they don't know how to approach the clients, or you know, they don't know if the clients would ever come back to them. So it is a very uncertain field that can become really good. Like, I think manufacturers will become better at their work if they are showcased, or if they are you know, like celebrated, because then we know that we are being seen as well. And the minute you know you're being seen, you know, automatically want to look better, get better. I mean, that's how it works. So,
and if you're not celebrated, you're not going to get the word of mouth business referrals.
Exactly.
And there'll be that natural selection.
And it's about time, because I think social media is just making all of us more close knit. Like, you know, it's so easy to reach out to people now. So I think it's about time that this happens, and I think it'll really change the way fashion works. Like, it'll completely change. So I think, like, for what I'm trying to say is, we need to accept that there is a world that is into fast fashion, and that's always going to exist, you know, how much ever we may want to put it down or not promote it, but it is a part of it is going to exist, you know. And there's fair reason for it, because it is affordable at the end of the day, and there are factories that can manage that. So why not? It is giving employment to a lot of people, you know. But it's the slow fashion, or it's smaller manufacturers that need the boost to keep going on, you know, just so that we focus more on creativity, more on you know, products that are handmade, or like made by skilled workers. I mean, you need to have a bit of both for things to you know, work.
So what's the future for you and the Odd Factory?
So I think the future for me and the Odd Factory would be a lot of focusing on upcycling, you know, a lot of collaborating with, you know, different people out there, manufacturers and designers, or even, you know, just bloggers and influencers, like just collaborating and, you know, talking about fashion, or celebrating what a manufacturing setup is like. So I think that's the path that we want to go on, and we want to connect with brands out there that are you know, established but still trying to reach their goals, you know. So we want to step in as their manufacturing partner and do manufacturing for them with no MOQs or with low MOQs, and you know, just help them in a way also to get their collections and their samples out there. So I think we want to focus a lot on working with brands that are smaller and working with independent design labels across the globe. Yeah.
And where can they find you? So anyone who's watched this, or and
So
they
I think they
think
can,
how
yeah,
amazing you are, and they want to get in
yeah.
touch, where can they find you?
So I think they can find me at the Odd Factory on Instagram. That's where they can connect with me at the easiest. They can find me at the Odd Factory on Facebook, and our website is coming up soon. And the minute it's on, we'll have a post about it on Instagram. So yeah, I mean, we're ready to connect
we will
as
list
soon
all
as.
of these contacts as well, so that
Yeah.
it's easier for people to find you. And that's it.
Yeah.
Amazing. I've really enjoyed chatting to you. It's been
Same here. It's
so
been so good.
And you've really opened up, the world to anyone who watches this interview, to a different side of India and manufacturing, because most people think India, big volume, it's changing. Also, people think, oh, India, it's cheap. It's changing. It's not cheap anymore. It doesn't have to be, fast fashion and child labor and all of these things. There's so new modern India and manufacturing that it's really interesting. And some of the skills and traditions that you have there and textiles is like, wow.
Yeah, I think just one small point that I want to add is that I think a designer or a brand should know what kind of manufacturer they're looking for. So if you know that, you are a brand that is into fast fashion, or you want to get there in some time, then I think maybe you need to go to a country or to where fast fashion factories exist. You cannot try and find someone somewhere and let's say they're not there at all. So you need to be clear on what kind of manufacturer you're looking for. And it's also about, like I said, understanding your manufacturer and what their processes are. So it would be great if brands actually question, how do you pay your workers, or how do you how do your workers work? Do they work from let's say 10 in the morning to 10 in the night, or what is your working system? Just instead, like what designers do or brands do is they focus on price, and of course everyone expects great quality, but the focus is always on price, which is fair. But I think it would be great if they also want to know about how you keep your workers, because a lot of the factories that I know in India, in different cities, are giving great prices, but they're not paying their workers well. So their workers keep changing, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I just think that you need to work for the community as well. So I think that's something that a designer or a brand must
I mean, you are spot on, and I didn't go into this because this is like a whole other black hole of conversation. I've actually have created an entire manufacturing course. It's called Fashion Manufacturing Mastery, and we touch on all of these subjects. But I often say that, finding a manufacturer is like, dating, or like going to a doctor. You really need to know what you want. You can't just say, oh, I need a manufacturer, or, and you need to know to what price point. You need to work out your price point properly. The lower the cost, the bigger the volume, most likely. You can't have a really elaborate design and ask for a really low price because you want to sell it cheaply. Just, there's so many moving parts. And I find that often this is the part that most creatives ignore. Because it's probably to do with numbers, and they don't, they want to gloss over it. And pick the wrong manufacturers for the wrong reasons, because they haven't educated themselves and worked things out properly, and then they complain and give bad name to a manufacturer industry.
So I also think that it's just this whole culture of working, like, we're so used to a set practice. Like, we're so used to, okay, manufacturers are people sitting in dingy factories working, where you can give them anything, you can tell them what you want, and they're supposed to give it back to you. So I think we're just used to this whole traditional concept of manufacturing in our head. But I think the faster we accept that that's changing, and we should allow it to change, So I think it would be great, like, if a brand or a label, let's say, wants to train the manufacturer. So let's say they like the quality, they like the people. Why can't you set up like a training video or like a module and say that, listen, this is how I want my garments to be packed and sent to me. So I think communication works both ways, so if you're willing to even educate the manufacturer on how you want your things done, I think that would be great. And I think it's very important that you because I know, again, a lot of factories where the manufacturer is like some boss sitting somewhere who doesn't really communicate with his clients. He has people, marketing people doing that for him, which I personally find really weird. So I think that it's important that there is a direct communication. It's not just all email, and you need to have like an interpersonal, like an interaction like this, and that's the beauty of working with brands that are smaller or more bespoke or more interested in growing in their creativity rather than in just in volumes.
I mean, you're absolutely right. Technology is here for us to make our lives better and easier.
Yeah.
Whereas in the past, it would have been very expensive to go and visit a factory. Now you can just like chat to someone and say, hey, let me show you my factory.
Yes, exactly.
I often give an example that once I was working for a client and I was overseeing their manufacturing.
Yeah.
But I had no time. It was such a quick turnaround. I had no time to quality control it. And I did it via Skype, literally like this, and them showing me. And I was like, do this, turn it this way, show me inside. So
exactly.
all of this, they're not barriers. There should be no barriers anymore. This technology is here to help us, get better, do better, get more.
No, I think the new way of working can also be where people like communication is a very powerful tool, right? So if you make sure that to communicate to the manufacturer everything the way you need, not like I said, not just by an email or a PDF and then say that I sent you the email, you didn't read it or you didn't follow it, like making sure that you have a video interaction, like maybe every 2 days or every 3 days, and at the same time, like valuing the time of the manufacturer as well. So if you are willing to pay the manufacturer for his or her time, I am sure that person is bound to give you their best in that much time, because they know they're going to be paid for it. So for simply, it's like if you say that, if I'm coming down for this week to like check on my samples or to check on how my production is going on, and I want to get some new things done. But if you pay the manufacturer for the time that they are investing in you, it's not a large amount. It's just about, how you pay by the hour, or you are going to, get extremely good service back, because they know that this means business. It's not just about
I think what you're trying to say is that manufacturers are not some kind of lower class workers, but they're your partners. They're partners.
Exactly. Yes.
And they're highly skilled and highly knowledgeable, and that knowledge and skill comes at a value that should be respected, right? And also,
and you must appreciate so if there's something good that the manufacturer has done, it's important to appreciate them for it, so they know that they're good at that, and then they are consistent with it. And if there's something you want them to change, you need to of course communicate that, but communicate it in a way that it should be well understood, basically, why you want that change, or how it's going to make your brand better. So I think it helps when you're just interacting, because when you're interacting, you're seeing the person, you are feeling a tone, you're feeling a vibe, you're connecting. And I mean, communication is really the way it can also really change a lot in moving forward.
That's amazing. So
Yeah.
that's been amazing. Let's follow up
Yes.
maybe in a few
Yes.
months and when this pandemic is over and see how you're doing, and maybe pick up another topic of conversation, because I think
Great.
probably
I would love that.
forever.
I would love that. And I think that if there's anything that I think that can change or something that, you know, I feel would be important for people to know out there or something, I'd definitely write to you, email it to you, and, it would be great if you could like reach it out to
of course.
hosts of people. Yeah. Okay. Great.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was a real pleasure to chat to you.
Yes, me too. Thank you so much. All right. Bye.